Hi everyone, my name is Ashley Wylde and welcome to my channel, Ashley's Wild Life. I've decided to start a playlist on my channel called Worldview. I want to be making videos about how I see the world, how I move through the world, what's important to me, and I'm excited about this because there's so much more to my life and going on in my brain than just my gender, and that's what I want this playlist to represent. I realize that one of the foundational elements for me is values, having values, knowing what your values are. And I think that sounds kind of hokey, and I think a lot of people are pretty content to have a very vague understanding of their values. If somebody says, do you know what you value? I think most people would feel confident saying yes. But if somebody says, tell me your top 3 values, a lot of people are going to be like, that's really hard. Because when you value a lot of things, pulling out the top 3, it's splitting hairs. But it's important to have distinguished for yourself what your values are and to what degree those values inform your life. A really helpful tool for this process is what's called a value sort. I'm going to put a link in the description to a website that has 50 or so core values that people report having in their lives. Let me tell you how I did it. I took a piece of paper and I cut it up into 50 or so tiny pieces, and then I wrote on each piece of little paper one of the values on this list, and I had them all spread out on a table in front of me. I started out by sorting the values into, I value this a lot, I do value this, and I can see the value in this, but it's not something that I personally use to inform my choices. And so I split all these little papers out into these 3 categories, and I took a moment to observe the 3 categories. What made it into my really important category? What made it into my still important to me category? And what was over there in the category of things that I don't value? I mean, it's kind of scary to say, like, I don't value something. Everybody is different. I felt that it was very influential for me to be confronted with the things I don't value. From there, I took the pile that was the things that I valued most. And for me, that pile was big enough that that was all I needed. It was about 28 of the values. And so I just set the rest aside. I took those and I broke them down into different categories in this fashion. I pulled out my top 10 most important values out of the whole pool, and then I organized them 1 through 10, and then I set them aside. And then I pulled out my next 10, organized them 1 through 10, set them aside, and then I did that with the remaining pieces of paper. This process probably took me about 15 minutes, but that I have done this before, several times actually. So I would plan for maybe a little bit more, like 30 minutes for your first time, because sometimes picking between 2 things you really value, it takes some thought, and maybe it gets you off on a tangent, and you want to be able to account for that. After I had sorted out my values, and I had them essentially organized into the most important, the second most important, and the third most important, I wrote them down somewhere that I will see them often. Now for me, that's my bullet journal, and trust and believe there's going to be a video about bullet journals in this playlist. But I want to share with you what my values are here where I wrote them in my bullet journal. I identified that the top 4 things that I pulled out are my core values, and that the rest are things that I really highly value. So here's that list. The reason it's important for me that I know my values, that I have them written down, that I can go and reference them whenever I want, is that when I am faced with a really hard decision, the question I ask myself is, which of the options, if any, aligns best with my values? And if there's an answer to that question, if one option more clearly aligns with my values than another, then I challenge myself to always choose that option, whether that's the easy option or the difficult option, because I believe in living a life where you know who you are, where you behave in a way that is consistent with who you are, and where you love your life. And what has gotten me through my struggles and gotten me into lots of positions that I'm in now that are positive and life-changing is that I know who I am, and I am willing and able to be vulnerable, to do difficult work, and to step up in order to act upon my values. I would love it if you all do this exercise, if you would post a comment and tell me, what are your top few values? What did this exercise feel like to you? Have you ever done it before? If so, was it different this time? If not, what did you take away from it? This is really foundational work for me. Like I said, so much of what I think about the world and the way that I move through it comes from knowing and having identified my values. I hope you found this interesting and maybe useful. I hope you do at least give it a shot, even if you think it's totally baloney, maybe at least try. And thank you all for watching. I will see you next Monday. Bye-bye.